From the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, it's Set List, Stand Up Without a Net. We are here at the Pleasance Ace Dome with comedians from around the world creating stand-up comedy out of thin air, on the spot, under pressure, and without any preparation whatsoever.
Will you welcome the number 14 Set List of Jason Byrne!
Hi. I'm just back from Brazil, and it was a fine holiday, and oh god, did I say Brazil? Yeah. So it was really. It's like having a shit in your head. But I was there, and it was. So I said, Brazil. I said, what am I doing in Brazil? I said, I've gotten the wrong plane. I shouldn't have been in Brazil. I should have went to the other place that has lots of me and lots of wind, lots of me and wind. Me and wind and lots more of wind. Yeah, that's where you should have been. Not in Brazil. We've sent you to the wrong place. What happened was that the travel agent said, look, get on this spaceship and you can go to Gibraltar. I said, you're kidding. There's a spaceship to Gibraltar? They went, yeah, straight now, if you want to get there. I said, how mucho is it? You should know how mucho it is. You should know how much it is to Gibraltar. I said, is it windy? They went, gusto, very gusto. So I arrived on Gibraltar, because eventually I got there, because I didn't even get to Brazil. So I get there. And the language is weird, because I go, hey, what's your name? And he goes, nah. I go, yeah, you. He goes, nah. Yeah, you. Are you saying me? He goes, no, nah. It's Paul in Gibraltar. And I said, is it really? He went, yeah. I said, what do you do? He goes, I run the Ferris wheel. You run the Ferris wheel in Gibraltar? Yeah, I run the Ferris wheel. I said, why are you talking like that? And he goes, meh. He said, you don't want to get up don't get on the top of the Ferris wheel. Well, why? Because it's very gusto. Up there, your chair will swing. It'll swing very hard. How hard? Mucho. It'll swing mucho hard on Gibraltar. I went, really, Paul? He goes, my name's not Paul. Well, what is it? Me. I thought your name was Paul. He goes, yeah, it is. It's pronounced meh. I said, like, what's the population of Gibraltar? He said, there's many people that live here. There's me and Phil. It's me and Phil, but he's a prick. He always leaves me off the list at Christmas. Nearly. When Phil leaves you off the list at Christmas, he goes, why does he do that? And he goes, yes he does, queen. I said, what? He goes, yeah, he does, queen. I said, me, why are you saying queen at me? He goes, isn't that Jason and Gibraltar? Yeah. Isn't it? In Gibraltar, doesn't Queen mean Jason? I mean, I don't know. I don't know me, does it? Because, yeah, it does, yeah. Yes, Queen, yes, Queen. Yes, Jason, yes, Jason. And then I sat on them. I sat on them. I was sitting on top of me. Me was going, why are you sitting on me? Because, well, in Gibraltar, that's how we ask each other to marry each other. Do you mean propose? He goes, yeah, but in Gibraltar, propose doesn't mean propose. It means, it means trouble. So I said to him, I said, me, what's your hobbies? He said, I like swimming. I like swimming and showing off my cock. What do you mean swimming and showing off your cock? Well, I dip my cock into concrete. And then I put like a robe over it. And then I show it to my friends. So I said, I've got to go. And me goes, how are you going to get out of here? I go, I don't know, me. I mean, it's been sad. I mean, I've had a good time with you, and I hope to get on your Ferris wheel. But I said, how do we stay in touch? I don't know. I says, we could tweet. He goes, I don't have a phone. I says, you don't have a fucking phone? You can go Gibraltar and have a phone? No, we don't have phones. Do you know any people with phones? And shellfish. I said, really? Yeah, man, but it's cruel. It's really cruel, you know? Because we have, like, shellfish aquariums. We drop them in there and we give them phones and they tweet, but they only have claws. So they can only tweet one letter at a time. It takes forever. Really? And do you have them in restaurants? What's a restaurant? And me and Paul, he said to me, I don't know what a wrist taunt is. But you know what I'll do? I'll get my Lobster to tweet it to you. I go, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, how you doing now? I went, yeah, I'm okay. I don't know how I'm going to get off Gibraltar. Because really? He goes, yeah, because I'm really fucking stuck in it now. So he said, why don't you get on top of the Ferris wheel? I got on that Ferris wheel. The Musta Gusto had built up, and it got really breezy. The fucking breeze picks up, and the fucking my car, the thing I'm sitting in, gets dislocated, and I get flying out. The next minute, the lobsters are flying around me. They're flying around me. I go, what the fuck are you doing? You're supposed to be tweeting. And they went, yeah, but in Gibraltar, we're birds. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what the fuck I've said. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of whatever happened.